Here's Brody Brazil.
So, Boiler, fans have been whispering your name for years. Come back to the Sharks, maybe as a coach, maybe as a broadcaster, whatever. I've been in your ear personally now for a couple years. What ultimately pushed you over the ledge to at least give this a try?
Well, it took 5 years. It took a pandemic. And it took my kids not wanting to be around me anymore. My kids are like, can you please just leave us alone? They're 11 and 13 now. So, and last but not least, I love the Sharks. I do. Obviously, I was here for 6 years. I played here, I should say, and I live here now. So I enjoy being around the game and stuff, but I didn't for a few years. I got a little burnt out, but dipping my toes back into this thing a little bit.
Retirement's important, right? Like, you got out at probably the perfect time. Your body could only do so much, and you had a long and great career. You won the cup, you won the gold medal. But what are those first couple years like when you actually try something completely new? You go off the rails for maybe the first time ever.
Yeah, well, for me, again, everybody goes through, something different. For me, my dream growing up wasn't being a hockey player. It was to live in this amazing, beautiful home, have this beautiful house, not knowing what I was going to do for a living. And fortunately, I literally went from retirement to building this home here in Los Gatos where I live. I was not the contractor, but I was the assistant contractor. Dave was great. Dave was my friend, but he said he's been doing this for 35 years. He's done Joe's house, Patty's house. And he said he's never met anyone more involved than I was. So I literally became a contractor. It took about 3.5 years, and it's awesome, and I love it. So for me, I wasn't bored. I never kind of went through the boredom that a lot of guys feel. So that kind of bought me 3.5 years. But the last 1.5 years, I kind of was like, okay. And the pandemic hit, and I was like, okay. Even I, who doesn't, likes to just hang out and watch movies and play video games and listen to music, I was kind of getting a little bored. So I would say the first 3.5 years it kind of flew, but the last 1.5 years has been a little bit more difficult. So
are you a tool guy? You have a tool belt?
Oh, I thought you meant like the band tool. Oh. Yes, I'm a tool band, but no, I don't have a tool belt, but I learned to. I just kind of learned watching some guys, befriended the electrician, some of my carpenters, and I wouldn't say I wouldn't be the first person I'd call if there was something broken, but I can handle a few more things now than I could 5 years ago, for sure.
You and I, Boiler, are in that same boat. My wife and I moved into a house from a condo, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and the amount of tools and home improvement stuff that I now own that I never thought I would own is amazing. And I actually love it. In fact, as soon as I'm done with you right now, I'm going to go out and cut some hedges and blow some leaves. I might rewire a socket. No, seriously, that's the kind of stuff I do. So
I hear you. I bought, like I said, when I retired, I went out with my buddy Jaybird, and I bought a chainsaw first time. I live on like 48 acres, so I have a lot of land, and trees go down.
Yeah.
I chop trees down now. I got a chainsaw. I have Sawzall, all these things that I had literally never heard of. Well, chainsaw, of course, but
Sawzall is awesome, though. By the way,
yeah, that I never knew what a Sawzall was until 4 or 5 years ago. And now it's like anything needs to get cut, I have a Sawzall.
It's literally what it's for. So let's go back to the task at hand here, right? When I was covering the Sharks, you were one of the go-to guys. Great talker, great interview. You always I could always see your brain cranking away when you were actually thinking when you were talking. And I'm curious, I think that's going to work for you on television. Do you think that feels like a natural thing for you when it comes across on TV?
I hope so. I think one thing you and I can both agree on, and hopefully a lot of fans can agree on, is the cliches are enough with the cliches. And sometimes, guys just don't know what to say or they don't want to talk. So I find that extremely boring as a fan, as a viewer, and I have been the last 5 years now. So I'm kind of on the other side of things, and you don't want to see that. You don't want to hear that. At least I don't. And
I don't either.
For me, I guess when I was interviewed, when I played, it was never about the cliches. You want to know, obviously certain things need to stay in the locker room, but you want to know how I felt about how I played or how the game went. It was from the heart. It was no cliches were ever probably used, and and hopefully that's what people will respond to. And apparently I don't know who Roy Kent is, but I will look into him, and I will challenge my inner Roy Kent and lose my mind once in a while. So hopefully people are okay with that too.
Roy Kent of Ted Lasso fame, veteran soccer player who retires, who dabbles in broadcasting for a while. And that's where I got the idea. I'm like, Dan Boyle, this is absolutely you. But going back to what you said about the cliches, I will say not all hockey players, but most hockey players are terrible at interviews because they go to the cliches that they hear other guys using. I'm also going to throw the media under the bus here a little bit. Most people in the media, I don't think they know maybe the right question that's going to invoke a true answer.
Totally agree. I think the media is responsible. You want to ask a bunch of vanilla questions that, guys, I know I did it in my, I played 18 years. It's like you only hear that same boring ass question so many times, and then you just kind of tune out,
right?
And you don't even, So I think I agree. The media, you got to know which questions to ask. And I think the other thing that I bring is, I think certain broadcasters or certain, they have a certain way that they think the game should be played. And sometimes it's very cookie cutter for me. I think it's very safe, and I didn't play the game that way. I think the game or thought the game differently than other players and most. And I may say things that people don't agree with because I don't always think that putting it in deep and keeping it simple is the way to play it, one shift at a time. I don't think like that. I think there are things that need to be done out there that are not so vanilla. So again, I don't know what's good. I don't know how long I'm going to be on the air with you guys. I don't know how well it's going to go, but you are going to get full honesty from me, and hopefully people can appreciate that and enjoy it. We'll see what happens.
So, you had a couple interesting run-ins with media over your career. Are you part of the media now? I'm curious what I should call you.
I don't know if I'm officially part of it, but I know that I won't be asking stupid questions. I shouldn't say that. I hope not to.
Leave that to me, Boiler. I've made a whole career on asking stupid questions. Leave that to me.
I hope not to. And again, I'm often asked about the Larry Brooks blow up and stuff. Listen, how can I put this gently? Listen, the media has a job to do, and I think they have to report the game and they have to do certain things. But when it comes vindictive and personal and almost tabloid-like, that's the stuff that doesn't belong in the game. And if you want to be that guy, then you better be prepared to get some backlash from the players. And that's I think that's okay too. I don't think it's a one-way street here. I think it needs to be a two-way street, and we have to hold the media accountable for that.
Well said. Hey, are we having beers before or after our shows? What are we doing? What are we doing with that?
Maybe before, during, and after.
During and after. I didn't know until recently that you're a big beer guy, right? That's your drink of choice.
I can drink. Well, I can drink beer. I went to college for 4 years, so I perfected the art. I drink Moscow Mules. That's kind of my drink of choice, which is and ginger beer. But I took a lot of heat for my chugging at one of the games and how it spilled all over me.
I think that's called respect is what you got for that.
Well, yeah, but that was my, I used to watch wrestling too, religiously, Mondays and Thursdays for 15 to 20 years.
Wow.
Although I was not a Stone Cold fan, I loved the chugging beer thing.
The whole crack and the double, yeah.
I just thought so. At the Sharks game, kind of did that, and of course, I'm not on social media, but my friends love to, let me know what people are saying, and of course, spilling the beer. Jesus. Are you guys gonna have a cough button or an FU button for when I?
No, we don't have a delay, Dan, but we're on cable. We're on cable though, so.
The F-bombs are good?
We just apologize and move on. In some cases.
How many times can you apologize, though?
You probably get 3, 3 a season. It's never
French is my first language, so
you could do that. There you go.
You can't say F you to the ref on the air.
I remember hearing you be interviewed once in the Sharks dressing room by RDS, right? The French network in Canada. Yeah. And I had never seen you speak French. I had to stand back and be like, wait, what? What's actually happening? Yeah, well, that's the Ottawa in you, huh?
Yeah, well, Dan Boyle is an Irish name. We used to be O'Boyles before they migrated to Canada. So, but the Boyles that landed in Ottawa, or whatever. Our family's French. So I went to French elementary school, went to French high school. My first English class that was not your English class, like your Spanish class or your French class, was in college. I remember it was aeronautics, which is crazy, 101. And I remember being like, oh, this is, wow, okay. But anyway, so my English I did learn through watching TV and locker rooms, which is not, locker rooms, hockey locker rooms are maybe not the best way to learn English, I would say. So sometimes the F-bomb comes out once in a while.
It's yeah. You know what? If it happens, it happens. It hasn't happened as part of our show, but certainly as a part of like a press conference, it slips out, in a scrum. I mean, and we just come back on camera and say, well, moving on. Simple as that. So, hey, real quick, like when you do have a beer, what is it? Like I like double IPAs, maybe even a triple sometimes.
Okay, no, I mean, again, being Canadian, it's out east. It's called Moosehead.
Oh yeah,
that would be my beer of choice. But I'm not a beer. Can I do this like a snob? Like a beer? I'll drink almost anything. But yeah, the darker the beer, like real thick dark, is probably not so much mine. But like I said, I perfected the art in college, so I've never shied away from a beer.
I realize, yeah, me neither, and I'm the same way. If it's wet, I'll drink it. I got to circle back to one more thing before we go to hockey. You said Steve Austin was not your favorite wrestler?
No.
So no, who was?
Well, I really liked The Rock when he first came up, and when he was a heel, and then he kind of blew. I've always liked the underdogs, and I've always liked, whether it's in sports or in music or in wrestling, for example. So when The Rock kind of blew up, I kind of got off that train. The Stone Cold was huge, and I didn't like Hulk Hogan growing up. I liked Kurt Angle for a while because he was like this, they had this storyline where he became this like nerd idiot, like goofy, like gold medalist. And
he was an American hero.
Yeah, but then they turned it into like, he became like this kind of like, speaking of tools, he became like this kind of nerd. Like it was hilarious. And so I kind of liked him. But yeah, I mean, The Rock, I think, probably when he first started, getting on the mic and people weren't sure yet.
If you smell, and
I never disliked The Rock. I mean, that was some pretty hilarious stuff that he did over the years, of course.
He's pretty likable. Boiler, I'm not even really a wrestling guy, but the names you just mentioned there were from an era that I'm familiar with. So if somebody's got to get the people's elbow, this hockey season, you layeth the smacketh down.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. As for the Sharks, like pivotal season, haven't been to the playoffs for 2. That's so uncharacteristic of the franchise, honestly, going back for 30 years. If you kind of have to take a big picture look right now, we don't even need to get specific, but if you have an instant hope for this team for this year, and if you have an instant worry for this team this year, what do those two sides look like?
I should preface this by saying I do come in with a little bit of a fresh look on things. I didn't watch hockey my first year at all. I probably watched 5 games the second year and maybe 5 to 10 the third. So the last 2 years I've watched a little bit more, unfortunately. It's been pretty tough. Obviously not making the playoffs is not something this organization has known for the better part of 20, 25 years or however long we've been around. So
31.
It's so I would say, I mean, the positive, or you should always start with the negative. So the negatives are, obviously, and you start with the negative and then finish with the positive. That's what I think. But, obviously they have some bigger contracts that there are issues with. Guys aren't getting any younger. That's if those guys can't be moved, those guys have to perform or find a way to make everything fit. It's a salary cap world, and that's probably, one of the concerns. And obviously there's a lot of turmoil within, obviously with the Evander Kane situation. And I don't have any inside scoop. So I always like to hear from a source. And sometimes as the media, we're out here and we don't really know what's going on. So I don't know what's going on.
Nobody does, honestly.
That's where, a distraction like that, it's very important for a captain and the leaders on the team to rally the team. And I'm going to turn this into a positive. This is what I'm hoping will happen, which is not a lot of, from everything I've read, no one's picking the Sharks to make the playoffs. So sometimes as a player, I know I would, you want to rally the team around this kind of outside noise of you guys aren't going to go anywhere. So I think Cooch, who I played with, is a tremendous leader. You lead by example first and foremost. Not the most vocal guy, neither was I, but it's about the leaders kind of getting that team together. And no one expects these guys to make the playoffs. And the positive here is I'm hoping these guys will surprise everybody, have this FU attitude that, okay, let's see what happens. And so that's what I'm hoping from the Sharks this year, is that they will be underdogs going into the season, but I'm hoping these guys can rally. And there's still a lot of talent. There's a ton of talent. They have a new goaltending situation here. But there's a lot of freaking talent in that locker room. And I think, new additions, I don't know the young guys, looking to see what they're going to do. That's always a big part of the team, but there's a lot of talent. And hopefully they have the right attitude.
Since you mentioned Logan as a leader, and to your point, you guys played together for a handful of seasons. I want to say all but your first season he was there. I think he came up your second season. But I quoted you, Dan, back in the day multiple times saying, I am Logan Couture's biggest fan. You were very fond of him, even as a very young player, way before he was captain material or officially the captain. What he has gone through in the last couple of years since taking the C, in no disrespect to Pavs or Jumbo or Rob Blake or Patty Marleau before that, I think he's going through more external things that are harder to deal with than any other prior captain. I'm wondering if you agree.
Yeah, probably. When you're the captain of a team that wins the President's Cup and is a Stanley Cup favorite every year, and you're winning the majority of your games, and I don't want to say that's an easy thing. It's never easy, but it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
He's a guy that's had to deal with injuries. He's had to deal with some losing seasons. He's had to deal with some locker room situations that, again, none of us know the true situation there, but that's not easy. I've always thought a captain needs to lead by example on the ice, and I don't think there's a guy that works harder than Logan. Win or lose, ahead or behind, he's a guy you want on the ice, and I think that's why I was so impressed with him as a kid. He's not a kid anymore, but still, he leads by example, and that's what you want from your captain. And hopefully these young guys are, and I'm sure they are. You look to your captain and you want to emulate him, and I think he's the right guy.
On to the young guys. William Eklund yesterday turned 19 years old. He's one of four, I want to say, Sharks rookies who obviously never played an NHL game yet. But they're
apparently played with his dad. I don't know if you know this.
I saw the picture, right, that you signed for him.
I don't know. In 2004, sorry to cut you off. In 2004, there was a lockout. Yeah. And I played in Stockholm, Sweden for a team called Djurgården. Mm-hmm. And yes, I played with his dad. So I don't remember signing an autograph for him, obviously, but it's yeah. So yes, makes me feel pretty darn old, but he's one of the guys. And I totally cut you off, but obviously sounds like he's been pretty good in preseason so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
All the Swedish guys know each other, by the way. Like Carlson knows him. I'm sure Dougie Murray knows him. Djurgården, isn't that like the most famous Swedish team, or at least I feel like it is?
It's the Stockholm. They have different divisions like soccer. They are Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and Djurgården is the Division 1 team of Stockholm. So if you're any decent in Stockholm, that's probably the team you're going to land on.
It's like the Maple Leafs of Sweden. And anyway, so he's like 19 years old. He's let's just say taking a far different path to the NHL than you did. He was the 7th overall pick. The Sharks feel like they got away with a steal versus Dan Boyle, who was undrafted in the NHL, still found a way to win a Stanley Cup and a gold medal for Team Canada. So again, I'm not going to say like his path, his situation right now, but can you imagine being 19 like he is, just turning it yesterday, cracking a roster, and basically he's probably going to get like top line looks and time for a majority of this season? That's a lot.
You're right. I don't believe you can understand unless you walk in someone's shoes. So I can only imagine. There's probably a lot of pressure, but at the same time, they're going to give him the opportunity. Okay, won't go down that road. But yeah, I think that's for another day. But no, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But he's going to get. It's very important to have people behind you, encouraging you and supporting you. And I think the coaching staff is going to give him every opportunity. I think guys like Logan and some of the older guys are going to be helping him out. But yeah, I'm excited. I hope he's excited, and the fire's got to be there. So hopefully, I don't know the kid, but hopefully the passion and the fire of wanting to be the best and is there. And it sounds like it has been so far.
When you watch him play, Dan, it's one thing, right? Because you can't tell his age, but when you watch his interviews and you see his face, I mean, he does look all of 19 years old, but he talks like a 25-year-old. He's just got that maturity. And I feel like some of that translates into his game. And to your point, having a dad who did this, right? Like there's the natural connection of why he's way ahead of his years, probably, right? What was his dad like?
I can't tell you how he was as a player. If he's listening, I was only there for, a few months, but from what I know, from what I remember, I mean, it was a great team. They took me in. We had 2 guys, I call us imports, that took us in, and they were great. And so I really enjoyed my time there. So I think one thing his dad will probably teach him, and one thing you never want to get too high and you never want to get too low. If it's your personal game and as a team, you want to ride those highs, and then there will be, and just don't get too cocky. Don't get too, and then on the other side, when things are down and low, just try to stay out of the darkness and just try to, stay positive. So hopefully he'll learn that. And again, I'm really excited to see what he's going to do.
I can't believe I'm going to ask about 2 former Sharks, and when I say the names Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton, saying former Sharks still doesn't register with me. Yeah. Now, you're 45, they're 42. First off, amazing that they're still playing at their age. Well, let me just say this: Joe is playing. He's with the Panthers. Patrick Marleau, as of the other day, I just reached out to him, texted him. He's trying to latch on somewhere. He's waiting for the right opportunity. Do you find it amazing that either Joe is still playing, or do you find it amazing that Patty hasn't found a team right now? How do you see their situations, knowing them as you do?
I'll answer it this way. I think what both of those guys have that I didn't when I retired was the fire that I just pointed to. You have to have that passion, that desire, and it's unfortunate, but those guys neither of them have won the cup. I think that's the elusive thing that they're both chasing, and that's keeping that fire alive, so to speak. So I think that's huge. I had, just comparing it to myself, I had 1 gold medal. I had won a Stanley Cup. I was, 40. I just kind of lost that passion. And the other thing, the last thing I'll add is you have to be willing to accept the role you're going to be in. So you're no longer a first line center. You're probably going to be a 3rd or 4th line center, or, wing. Yep. Play less minutes on the power play. Are you willing to accept that? I was not willing to accept that. That's why I had to retire, because I I couldn't do that. I didn't want to do that. I didn't enjoy that. Joe's built different than me. He's accepting of his role. He wants to, teach the young guys, and he's okay playing fourth line and in and out of the lineup. And I shouldn't put words in his mouth. I should not say that, but I think he is.
That's what he did in Toronto. I mean, he was kind of like Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner's dad.
He led in different ways, and I think that's where Patty and Joe. That's why those guys can still play, because one, they have that desire to. Besides the fact they're in great shape and all that other stuff, and they're amazing Hall of Fame, soon to be Hall of Famers. Besides the obvious, they have, the fire, and I think they're both willing to accept maybe a lesser role in order to get that cup, which I didn't have that.
It's just interesting, especially with Patty. I mean, seeing Jumbo in a Panthers jersey is one thing. Like, that's enough shock to your system. But thinking about Patty right now, as training camps have already started and finished, and he's not with the team right now. My hope for him, Boiler, is that halfway through a season, he does the old Justin Williams thing where he stays in shape, like we know he will, and some team needs him, and they look at him and they know what they're going to get. They know he'll be ready. He steps in and he can be with a contender. Is that a realistic hope?
Yeah, I think it is. I don't think it's bad for Patty to miss camp. Okay, there's nothing fun at camp. There really isn't.
He's done that a few times before. Yeah,
especially at 42. Going through training and testing and preseason. That's no good for anybody, especially if you're 42. So the good news is Patty's a terrific skater. I think you lose that, you're pretty much done. So he's certainly not the skater he was 10 years ago, but he's still better than half the players in the league. So he's not going to lose that if he keeps himself in shape. I think missing a quarter of the season as much as half a season, although you don't want to see that. Not the worst thing in the world. But like you said, the teams will know what he brings. He's a great guy. He's a great locker room guy. So somebody might want to put him in a hole somewhere that they see that they need something, and it may take a team, 15, 20 games to figure that out. So that's what I'm hoping for him. And I agree with you, but I don't think missing training camp in a quarter of the season is all that bad for him.
I want to talk about Drew Remenda, of all people. Now, you guys obviously crossed paths during your time as a player, and he was a broadcaster. And then right around the same time that you went to the Rangers, he also left the San Jose Sharks. For different pastures, let's just say. Your thoughts on Drew Remenda, because he's now officially back in the flesh as one of our teammates.
I don't like to admit this, but I actually really enjoyed Drew.
Why is that not okay?
I'm kidding. He's not a good-looking man. He should be on the radio, first of all. That's the first thing. But no, I was a player. I watched, I think you guys know this. And if you didn't, I always would go, I would DVR my games, go home, have my post-game meal, and watch my shifts. So, lucky for me, I was playing 25 to 30 minutes. So I was watching a lot, and I had to listen to, Randy and Drew call the games. And I think they both did a terrific job. I think, Drew was honest. I think if he didn't like a certain play or a certain effort, he would call a player on that. And sometimes teams don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear their reporters, their broadcasters speak negatively, but I think he was honest. And that's what I've always appreciated about him. And him and I had some talks, and there'd be like, I remember one game in particular, he called me out on something, and we talked about it the next day because I completely disagreed. And he was open, and he was awesome, and I'm really happy that he's back on board. And I appreciate his honesty, and I think he's very good for the game. So I'm looking forward to seeing him and talking to him. Although I'm not seeing him so much, not looking forward to seeing him. Not really fun to look at, but certainly talking to him will be fun. We'll be all right.
Here's the rules, Boiler. It's okay to say whatever you want about Drew in a negative fashion, but don't you ever cross that line with Randy Hahn. Like that, now we're talking legend status. Drew is fair game. Randy is untouchable as the GOAT. All right, so just...
Randy is the GOAT. I've hung out with Randy a couple times over the last few months. Been over to his house for dinner. Beautiful house. What kind of salary is he on? Because that house is unbelievable.
30-something years of calling games. Come on, you got to get some reward out of it.
He's amazing,
yeah.
And there's nobody better.
I'm realizing what we got to do for you here, Boiler. You have the gold medal. You've got the Stanley Cup. You now need to get an Emmy. You need to go for the trifecta. And then as soon as you get an Emmy, you can quit TV. I want to get you an Emmy, and then you can quit that too.
Mic drop. See you, and fingers in the air.
All right, last thing here. We talked about the Sharks not being a playoff group now for 2 years. They've never missed the playoffs 3 times in a row in franchise history. Do you think something like that, for as much as this is a young team, this is a different team, they've got 2 new goalies, they've got a new third-line center, they're bolstered in a lot of different ways, and not everybody understands the depth and the history of that. Do you think, though, that's somewhere on somebody's radar, that they know that?
That they know what? I need you to clarify your question.
That they know that history is kind of on the line here, that they've never been in this spot before where they could miss for 3 straight years. Is there a little bit of pressure that comes with the history?
I don't think the players care. The players won't know that. They won't care. The players' jobs are to make the playoffs every year. So I don't think the players are going to care. I don't think it's added pressure or incentive. You want to make the playoff regardless of what history tells you. I think as organizations and teams, the Sharks have never had, like you said, back to back bad years. You've seen the Penguins, you've seen the Kings, you've seen Chicago. Those teams won some cups because they were really bad for a while, and they got to draft well and do that. And the Sharks have never had that opportunity, although they've found some diamonds in the rough in the late rounds. That's scouting is a big part of that, but they've never had to do that. And I don't know that they want to do that because that's tough. You want to, we've done that for 2 years now, and it's not easy. You want to do it for 5 or 6. You're asking a lot from the fans to withstand that. You don't want to do it. So you got to build on the fly, and that's what they've been trying to do. And hopefully I'm praying that, guys will have better seasons this year, and then you'll have some young guys coming in, and you'll have some guys that, the other thing you don't know is I skated for the first time after 5 years. I skated with the guys for 2 weeks, and it was a lot of fun. And there were some guys that I didn't even know who they were, and I will have to check the roster to see if they're on there now. But they were really good. They were really good. Now, obviously, I'm nowhere as good as I used to be, but I was impressed with a few guys. Dahlin was one of them that I remember. So you never know. There might be some players that will surprise, and I think we're going to need that if we have any hopes of making the playoffs.
Well, definitely a lot of hopes for the Shark player rookies, but also for the Shark broadcaster rookies. And on that note, Boiler, thank you so much for doing this. I can't wait to see you in person. Can't wait to work with you. You're going to be great. I know that. And
I miss the camaraderie of being on a team. And although this isn't a hockey team, it's a team. I had, Sean and Devin over, and I've hung out with Randy, and I miss that. And I actually like you too. So
thank you.
For now. Well,
I won't piss you off. I promise. I didn't do it when you were playing. I don't think so. I'll maintain my record.
I've got thick skin. I can handle a lot. So no, but I'm looking forward to being with a team. And I think in a silly little way, being part of this is me being part of a broadcast team, even if it's for just a few games. I miss that.